So yeah, my dad was a printed circuit designer. So printed circuits are kind of the precursors to what silicon chips are. You know, it's all things go in, they got to come out other end. Anyway, he worked for a lot of companies over the hill doing specialized jobs of these projects. He would go from one project to the next to the next. And he worked for NASA and Lockheed and Intel, and the list goes on. Anyway, when I shaped my first surfboard in 1979, I showed him, and I said, Dad, check this board out. That's great and groovy, and he thought that was cool. Then I shaped another one in 1980, and I said, this board's magic. You know, and he's like, oh, what is it magic? It does anything and everything I want to do. As I think about doing it, the board's doing it, great and groovy. And he said, what do you do if you break that board? And I said, well, you go in and you shape another one. And he goes, but how do you get the magic? How do you make that board exactly the same as the other one? And I said, you just be really careful and you just, measure everything out. And he goes, well, let me show you something. I'm doing some beta testing for a startup company up in the North Bay, up in San Rafael. And what they do is they've taken this numeric equation. It's called the Bezier curve. Bezier curve is based on a numeric equation that makes you loft curves, bend and do stuff. And you can have data points and you can change that curve. And what we're doing now is we're designing printed circuits or construction houses, whatever, with 3D drawings by using this. Okay, so instead of using French curves and triangles and stuff, we're using this design program. And so I'm helping these guys develop this thing. And I said, well, that's cool. And he goes, I think we can take this program and go over to Ames Research, which is the surplus stuff that does all the NASA and the Lockheed stuff. And I think we can make that talk to a machine to cut out a surfboard and make it do it again. And a 19-year-old kid went, oh, Dad, there's no soul in that. Nobody wants a surfboard made by a machine. Okay? And my dad laughed and he said, okay, but it would be a fun project. Let me know if you ever want to do that. Okay? And so we just left it at that. And I think at the time, this cat named Barlone in France had done similar thing. He had a shaping machine or whatever, and it was pretty crude. So you fast forward in time, I start working at Aero, Bob Pearson starts teaching me to shape, and I was learning to be a production shaper. Okay, you need to shape X amount of boards a day. These are what I want you to do. You've got to get all your chops down. You've got to skim 100 blanks before you can move to putting rocker, and you got to get your rocker down before I let you template a board. You got to template a board before I let you cut it out. All this formal stuff, training to do stuff. That company, that startup company that my dad was working for, was named AutoCAD. Okay? So, little startup in North Bay of San Francisco Bay, San Rafael. And I laugh my ass off now when I tell that story because they're like, dude, you could have been an early adopter. You would have known all about this, But I go, yeah, but I wouldn't have learned my trade, my craft.
You would have had a whole different business.
Yeah, and for me, I can, these file cabinets represent every board I've shaped since I've been doing my own thing. And I pull my file and there's a lot of data on those files that I can grab it. And what blank I order from US Blanks, what rocker profile, what stringer I put in it. I can order the same thing, walk in my room. It's got a list of what templates I used on it. And I can go at it, And you and I could talk about a board and I can go do it straight away. That's kind of what the CAD design and doing all that did. Just takes that. So anyway, it's pretty funny, and it's my funny little story.
What's interesting about it is your dad, while he was right with everything that the project he was presenting to you,
yeah,
it might not have spit out the magic board as you knew it.
Not at that time period, no.
Well, even today, like with the refinement, like the magic board, whatever was the essence of that magic, might not be represented through the mathematical numeric equation. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was just showing me. Here's the interesting thing about that. So as deeply embedded as my dad was in that industry, in technology, okay? He was like, blind faith in technology is false, okay? all we're trying to do is we're trying to duplicate what happens in our head.
Yeah.
And we're trying to keep up with what's going in our head. And he goes, the human mind, the way the human mind functions and what we're doing is still incredibly precise and incredibly accurate. He goes, let me show you something. I can draw a straight line. And he took a piece of paper and he took a pencil and he went whoosh, with a straight line. And he said, check it out. He took a straight edge and put it right next to it. And sure enough, that's a straight line. Okay, you do it. I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do it. You try it. Put a pencil down, I pull straight. Not that great. Pull it down. You can do it. You can get a straight line or whatever like that. He goes, the other thing is, let me show you something. And he grabbed a stack of papers and he kind of wrote it and he handed it to me. He goes, how many layers of paper are right there? And I felt it and I'm like, feels like 2. He pulls it apart. There's 2. How did your body know that thickness? How thick is a sheet of paper? He goes, that's how accurate we are. And all we're trying to do is recreate that, you know?